National Executive Committee meeting of the All India Federation of Women Lawyers. It's a privilege bestowed on us after a very long time. We are rich with an elite audience today, consisting of National Executive Committee members present here who are representing the Women Lawyer Association of various states of our nation. As a prelude to the NEC meeting, we have organized a seminar and discussion on a very relevant topic in the current scenario, the Romeo-Juliet law. A warm welcome to all the dignitaries on and off the dais to the inaugural ceremony of the seminar. Now, may I call upon Srimati Advocate Uttara Ashokan for the prayer.
Jaya he Bhagavati Surabharati Tava Charanam Pranamamaha. Jaya Jaya he Bhagavati Surabharati Tava Charanam Pranamamaha. Nada Brahmamayi Jayavageshwari Sharanam Te Gacchamaha. Tvamasi Sharanya Tribhuvana Dhanya Suramuni Vandita Charana. Navarasa Madhura Kavita Mukhara Smita Rujira Harana. Jaya Jaya he Bhagavati Surabharati Tava Charanam Pranamamaha. Pranamamaha. Pranamamaha.
Good morning, one and all. Navigating through 60 years of formation of Kerala Federation of Women Lawyers, I would like to bow my head before the memories of our founder members, especially to commemorate Justice K.K. Usha. The third death anniversary was on 5th October. I feel extremely privileged and honored to be given this opportunity to welcome this august gathering. It is my pleasure to welcome our backbone, our mentor, our elder sister. It is none other than the President of Kerala Federation of Women Lawyers, Advocate P.K. Shantamma. I feel proud and extremely overwhelmed to be part of this esteemed federation who have seen luminaries being elevated to the judicial galaxy. I am honored to welcome our life member, Her Ladyship Justice Anu Shivaraman, to this august occasion. When we hear the word Kerala, the God's own country, the scenic beauty, the backwaters, the festivals, the Onam, the Sadhya. The Sadhya is a feast prepared by several fruits and vegetables. And then the leader of Kerala, the Advocate General, the leader of advocates in Kerala, Sri Advocate Gopalakrishna Kurup sir, the Advocate General of Kerala. I welcome upon you, sir, on behalf of Kerala Federation of Women Lawyers. The Princess of Silicon Valley of India has become the Queen of All India Federation. It is none other than Advocate Hemalata Manishi, the President of All India Federation of Women Lawyers. I welcome you, ma'am, on behalf of Kerala Federation of Women Lawyers. Advocate Biju, the Vice President and the President in charge of Kerala High Court Advocate Association. I welcome on behalf of Kerala Federation of Women Lawyers. Romeo and Juliet is a tragedy written by the William Shakespeare and his early career. It is more than a literature. So we are going to have a discussion. It is whether to revisit on POCSO law by, and I am honored to take this floor on this occasion to welcome our today's speaker, Professor V.S. Elizabeth, National Law School of Indian University, Bangalore, who is an eminent person for this session. Welcome you, ma'am. DGP of Police, R. Nishantini IPS, to this discussion. I take this opportunity to welcome on behalf of Kerala Federation of Women Lawyers. Here is really an inspiration I welcome all the delegates on behalf of Kerala Federation of Women Lawyers for this session. When you see many persons together in different glitterings, but some of the reflections would really blink your eyes or pose your eyes. I would like to welcome the senior advocates of this federation, Advocate VP Seemanthini Madam, Advocate Sumati Dandapani Madam, senior advocates, and Shanta Kumari Madam, all the other senior delegates and all other members from all over India. Showing a glimpse of unity in diversity is our advocates on the floor for a dance performance. I also welcome those advocates to this floor. The illumination of function is always respectful members, and I welcome all the other members. If I have left anyone, I welcome all the members to this August gathering, and thank you. Jai Hind.
Advocate S. Biju, President in charge, Kerala High Court Advocates Association. Advocate Karthika Sukumaran, Vice President, All India Federation of Women Lawyers. Advocate Anjita Jason, Secretary, Kerala Federation of Women Lawyers. Professor V.S. Elizabeth, National Law School of India University. Timothy R. Nishandini, IPS DIG of Police. Our respected national and state leaders of Federation, senior advocates, other dignitaries, and my dear friends. A very good morning to all. Indeed, it is a very proud moment that the learned sisters, who are the leaders of the Federation from different parts of our country, have assembled in our small state in the southernmost part by travelling long distances to attend the National Executive Committee meeting. Thank you all. Today we are discussing a sensitive issue which needs attention in the present scenario, and we have two eminent speakers to enlighten us on the subject. We know that the state-wise units of the Federation are doing many activities for the welfare and betterment of the women and children, sometimes by protesting, sometimes by reacting, and sometimes by legally fighting, fully knowing that we are the persons to stand in the forefront as part of our commitment. In Kerala, we are engaged in many projects for the betterment of the women and children, like the Victim Rights Center, which stands for the victims of many atrocities and crimes, Family Counseling Center, to help to maintain the harmony in the family, the forum COPT for protecting children from online abuses, and Sambala for imparting awareness to the school students about some of the acts and laws which they are to be familiar with, and for saving themselves from all evil elements which they may come across. All the first projects, we proudly say, have emerged from Senior Judge Justice Muhammad Mustaq, and we move ahead with the wholehearted support and involvement of all the judges of our High Court. We are able to manage all projects successfully because of the lead role being taken by Advocate Parvati Menon and the active participation of all our advocates, dedicated and so committed. We are also conducting legal awareness classes, legal aid clinics for women groups for solving their legal disputes, and also we are stepping to the legal battles for justice. For encouraging our young lady lawyers, we have two endowments introduced by Justice P.V. Asha, former Judge High Court of Kerala and now Judicial Member Kerala Administrative Tribunal, and Justice Mary Joseph, sitting Judge High Court of Kerala. Our senior advocate Sumati Dandapani, senior advocate VP Seemanthini, advocate Molly Jacob, advocate Aisha Joseph, and all our seniors are our pillars of strength. Our beloved Justice Anu Shivaraman, a senior-most lady judge in our High Court, a person of principles, a person of humanitarian considerations, amazingly speedy and quick as a judge, was our member. But I would say that she continues as our member by her blessing, support and guidance in all our activities. Thank you, Justice Anu, for being a strong supporter of Federation. Land Advocate General has been showing great concern on our Federation. Our High Court Advocates Association also has been extending all support to our activities. In this occasion, I would like to share my anxiety that though we proudly say unity in diversity, it appears that people are in diversities due to differences in caste and religions. It is common that women are the victims of atrocities and crimes. Just we have witnessed the heartbreaking scenes from Manipur where women were treated most inhuman. I am not on any politics. In Vachati village, 18 tribal women were brutally raped by 269 government servants. accused have been convicted after 31 years. Just imagine how helpless and panicked they were then. It is very painful that the women and children from the downtrodden communities are being discriminated, brutally raped and killed, mainly on their caste identities. They are found incapable of raising their voice against brutalities and injustice. The authorities who are duty bound to protect them when keep silent and shut their eyes. The scope of fundamental right under Article 21 of the Constitution ends there. While our Constitution ensures equal justice, liberty, fraternity and brotherhood, I believe that the time has come to open our eyes to the dreadful situation and we should be in the forefront as a strong warriors for curbing the evil practices around us. How can we sleep peacefully when we see the women wretched and lost beside us? Thank you. Wish you a nice day.
Ma'am, you've graced this occasion with your presence. May I invite you for the inaugural speech and also to inaugurate the seminar by lighting the lamp here.
And of the dais, my dear friends, it is indeed a pleasure to be with you today and to see so many varied faces, some very familiar, some not too familiar, but yet it is a wonderful day for all of us to be together on a day like this. And the reason we are here, according to me, is more the reason for rejoicement today. We are here, the All India Federation of Women Lawyers with the Kerala Federation of Women Lawyers is conducting a seminar on a revisit on POCSO law to the extent of decriminalizing consensual, non-exploitative sexual activity of children between the ages of 16 and 18. Well, this is quite a controversial subject. We have enacted the POCSO laws to confront a specific need that was felt because of the abuse that our children were facing in society. The criminal abuse with which our children were confronted was felt to be such a situation that a specific law with strict criminal liability and even more was felt to be the need of the hour. The question whether the age of consent should be limited to 16 or should be maintained at 18 was something which was deliberated upon, and a decision was taken that the age of consent should remain at 18. Therefore, the decision to place the age of consent at 18 was not something which just happened. It was after due deliberations that it was decided that the age of consent should remain at 18. Well, in the working of the law, what has occurred is a situation where completely consensual sexual relationships between young adults has reached a situation where there is no intention and no complaint, yet because of the strict liability imposed by the Act, there is a crime. I had the occasion to interact with lady legislators all over the country in a conference conducted especially for lady legislators, by the Speaker of Kerala. And the subject I was asked to speak on was legal gaps. And this specifically was one of the issues that I had raised at that conference. And I find that over the time, because of the situations that are faced in most of the states, in most conferences where we talk about POCSO law and the difficulties encountered in the implementation of the POCSO law, we also speak about this specific issue of consensual sexual relationships between young adults and the criminal liability which is fastened upon one of the consensual partners, on the ground that the liability under the POCSO Act is strict liability, and that the burden of proof is actually, there is once the initial burden to prove that the act has been committed is discharged, the burden shifts. Therefore, this is a matter which lady lawyers should definitely take up and deliberate upon with all due seriousness. I feel that the members of the civil society, though they are more in connection with the real happenings on ground, they may not be competent in that sense, in the legal sense of legal competence, to really deliberate upon the effects of decriminalization and whether such a decriminalization is called for in the present scenario. It is for us, the legally trained persons, and especially lady lawyers, to take up this issue. I'm so glad that the Indian Federation of Women Lawyers and the Kerala Federation of Women Lawyers has taken this up as the subject for this consultation. I wish this consultation all success. I'm hoping that this is the first step in a long consultative process that will bring about a proper resolution to this issue. I take great pleasure in inaugurating this session today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am, for the thoughtful word. Senior Advocate Sri Gopalakrishna Kuruppa, Advocate General of Kerala, has always voiced the rights of lawyers at the need of the hour. He has joined us in the midst of his busy schedule. Sir, I invite you to appraise with an insight to the topic.
Justice Anushwa Raman, who delivered the inaugural address, the President of the function, Srimati P.K. Shantamma, President of the Kerala Federation of Women Lawyers, Srimati Hemlata Mukherjee, President of All India Women Lawyers, Federation of Women Lawyers, Sri Biju, Vice President, Kerala High Court Advocates Association, Professor Elizabeth, Mrs. R. Nishantini, who are the speakers in the seminar, Srimati Kartika Sukumaran, Ranjita Jason, and all delegates who are present here, dignitaries present on and off the dais, senior advocates, friends. First, let me convey the warm regards to the delegates on behalf of the Kerala Lawyer Fraternity of Kerala who are attending this conference. To have chosen the right relevant topic for discussion in this seminar, in the current scenario, in the wake of the proposals for amendment to the law relating to the age of consent in respect of POCSO laws as well as the Indian Penal Code. I think that a brief survey of the history of the amendments brought to the law relating to the age of consent in the last century will be helpful for you to have a fruitful discussion on the subject now proposed. You may be knowing that till 1891, if I am subject to correction, the age of consent in our penal laws in respect of an offence of rape was at age of 10. It was because of some incidents which happened in Bengal, that is the death of a child bride namely Philomena Dasi, who was married to a man of age 35, died in an attempt to have possible sexual relationship by her husband. That led to a clamor from the social reformists and other rightful persons seeking for an amendment to raise the age of consent from 10 and also to have a look on the provisions of Child Marriage Act, which was then in existence. Accordingly, it was raised to the age of 12. Thereafter, I think in 1925, again it was raised to 14. Then in 1940 or 49, finally it was raised to the age of 16. Till it continued to 2012 and 13, when the new laws relating to child sexual abuse was brought in 2012. Even while the provisions of the IPC continued to be the same as that of age of consent continued to be 16. When the POCSO law was enacted, it was the definition of childhood was brought in, wherein all children of either sex below the age of 18 is considered to be a child. Thereafter, it was following the Delhi incident, the Verma Commission was appointed. The recommendations of Verma Commission was also being subjected to discussion of the Parliament. Though Verma Commission's recommendation also suggested that the age of consent should be retained as 16 as in the earlier. The Parliament decided to change it as to 18. And that's the present law as of age of consent seems to be is in POCSO law as well as in the general penal law, it's 18. Now, presently, it is in air. I don't think that any concrete suggestions have been put forth by the Law Commission in its 83rd report or in any other document now being discussed in the national debates. There is no concrete proposal to raise the age of 16 to 18 or to reduce the age of consent from 18 to 16. But I find that at a glance of the Law Commission's report, it is seen, recommended, that as suggested in the inaugural, referred to in the inaugural lectures. In cases of consensual teenagers' relationships, the increased number of cases being registered and booked and which have come before various high courts. And various judges of the high courts have also opined that a relook in the light of the provision, in the light of the experience we have gained from 2013 onwards, that such a relationship, consensual teenage relationships, have also been subjected to the rigor of laws. And therefore it is necessary to have a second look. I don't find that in the proposed amendment of the Bharatiya Nyaya Samhita also, the self-same age limit is now being prescribed. There is no change is being prescribed in the amended laws which presented before the Parliament in the last 11th of August. So it's for the members of the Federation of Lawyers and all right-thinking persons to have a comprehensive discussion on this subject and to have put forth your suggestions with considering all the aspects of the matter. And I hope that the discussions which will follow today's seminar and other discussions which will be pioneered by your organization will help the legislatures and other persons who are concerned with to have a comprehensive relook at the provisions of the POCSO Act as well as the provisions of the Penal Code in the light of the recommendations now placed by the Law Commission before the government, as well as the public opinion mobilized in the light of the increased number of cases registered against those who are involved in the consensual sexual relationship in the teenage group. Therefore, I wish all success to this seminar and the organizers. I congratulate.
Kerala Federation is one of the most active members in our federation. I will say one of the most active because otherwise our Santa will object. You are doing a wonderful job. Organized a meaningful seminar by selecting the most relevant and hot subject of today. Sexual behavior of younger generation is undergoing a lot of change today. Not only parents and society but also the courts and Indian government are trying to find a solution and a way out. Recently, the committee appointed for this purpose has suggested decriminalizing consensual sex between 16 and 18 years, leaving the discretion to courts. It is not only a legal issue, it may solve the legal issue. It is not only a legal issue, but a social and ethical issue and also a health issue also. What are the repercussions because of the change in the sexual behavior? Are we prepared for the culture of dating, condom vending machines in schools and colleges, teenage pregnancies, teenage abortions, illegitimate children? Is sex education in schools, colleges is the answer. Parents are already thinking of early marriages for their daughters because of this problem. Whereas government is thinking of raising age of consent for marriage of girls to 21 years. See the conflict between these two. It's a complex issue. Let us discuss it and try to find feasible way out. And we are all interested in listening to our learned colleagues. So thank you very much.
Last but not the least, may I call upon Advocate Biju, the President in charge of Kerala High Court Advocates Association, who has always been a wholehearted support to all the endeavours of Kerala Federation of Women Lawyers, who would address you with the felicitation note.
Honorable Madam Justice Anush Viraman, respected P.K. Sandamma, President of Kerala Federation of Women Lawyers, our beloved Sandamma Chechi, Senior Advocate Sri K. Gopalakrishna Kurup, Advocate General of High Court of Kerala, Srimati Hemalata Mahishi, President, All India Federation of Women Lawyers, Srimati Advocate Ranjita Jason, Advocate Kartika, respected Senior Advocates Sumati Madam and Simantini Madam, my esteemed sisters of the bar, friends. I cannot say ladies and gentlemen as there are not many gents here. It's indeed a matter of great privilege and honor to be here among you when you are going to have your National Executive Committee of Federation of All India Federation, and also a discussion on a most relevant topic which has already hit headlines. As Madam Hemalata Mahishi has already warned all of us, I am also given only 3 minutes time and I am not going to take much of your time. Anyhow, I should thank you for including me also in this session, and I should also take this opportunity to thank the Kerala Federation of Women Lawyers for extending their wholehearted support to all the ventures that Kerala High Court Advocates Association has been undertaking over the years. I can frankly say that whenever we design any program, we think about any project which we are going to undertake, definitely members of the Kerala Federation of Women Lawyers will also be among the think tanks to organize that program and to make it a success. And I should convey the thanks and regards of Kerala Executive Committee of the Kerala High Court Advocates Association also for the kind of support that you have been extending to us, and I expect that you will continue in the coming years and coming session also. The topic that you have selected to discuss, I understand that this is only a prelude to the coming session, and it's the most relevant and it should be broadly discussed throughout not only among the lawyer fraternity but among the society also. The laws that we have enacted, as our Advocate General has already scanned through the progress of consent age of women, but we have to examine how that have affected the ethnic societies, the tribes, and other backward societies of our community also. How far we are able to, our justice dispensation system, and have been able to reach out to them so that they are aware about the changing scenarios of our legal system. Of course, Madam Manu may be knowing that the increasing number of rape cases that is being charged against the tribes and other ethnic societies. They do not know for what purpose they are being imprisoned, and after maybe our presence and our system is so great that after spending a considerable amount of time in prison, we will be generating not civilized citizens but criminals only. And we should be thinking of that also, that aspect also while we are discussing this topic. I hope that the discussions that are going to happen today and which we will be taking forward in the coming days will be helping us to shape a perfect law which will help our women folks and our lady members to stay safe among us in the society. And that is definitely the sign of a civilized society. Thank you for your for extending me the time. Thank you all. Jai Hind.
Having taken time after their busy schedule to join us, we would have a small tea refreshment break for 5 minutes. Thank you. May start with the next session, that's the seminar, the most important session of today. I request all of you to kindly be seated. The Supreme Court recently sought the government's response on the potential implementation of the Romeo and Juliet law in India, aiming to decriminalize teenage sex. But the Law Commission has advised against lowering the age of consent from the existing 18 years. The topic for today's seminar is a revisit on POCSO law to the extent of decriminalizing consensual, non-exploitative sexual activity of children between the ages of 16 and 18, a need of the hour. When I was asked to say a few sentences introduction by Parvati ma'am, to be frank, I was a little skeptical. Even now I'm a little skeptical because we have two eminent speakers, renowned speakers for the day. We are honored to have two renowned speakers. Professor Elizabeth is a renowned academician of the National Law School of India, University, Bangalore, one of the most prestigious institutions of our nation, which is also known as the Oxford of the East. She's also the coordinator of the Center for Women and Law at the MLSIU, a gifted teacher, an academician, a brilliant orator who has chaired countless number of seminars. Ma'am, in fact, it adds pleasure to me to say that the Kerala High Court Advocate Association is blessed to have many of your students as leading lawyers today. I'm honored to invite you to have the first session with us. Our next speaker for the day is Srimati Nishandini IPS, the DIG of Police, Trivandrum Range. She is a very sensitive yet socially committed officer, is a person with a plethora of experience on a daily basis and having first-hand information about the pros and cons of the topic that are going to be discussed at a ground level. Ma'am, it's a privilege to have you amongst us for today's discussion as the second speaker. With all respect, may I invite the two speakers to the dais. We have the first speaker now. Nishandini ma'am would join us after this. Thank you.
Good morning to everyone here, and I thank Ms. Parvati Menon and the Kerala Federation of Women Lawyers for inviting me to participate in this discussion, to share a few thoughts that I have on the topic. When Ms. Menon asked me to speak on this topic, I was a little reluctant, because while I have worked on women and law related issues, I haven't really worked on issues relating to children. And so thanks to her, I had to do some research, and I hope that what I have to share will, provoke you to think and understand that this is a very complex issue that we are seeking to discuss, which cannot be resolved through enacting new laws or making amendments to the current legislations, but needs a much larger social movement if we want to actually empower our girls to make decisions that would be meaningful and would be informed decisions by the girls. One slight correction in my introduction. I'm not the current coordinator of the Center for Women in Law. I gave that up in 2012. So now I just function as a professor of history and work on feminist legal theory legal issues relating to women's lives. Okay, I have just slightly, of course, changed the topic just to make it convenient for my purposes. Some of the things, of course, the speakers in the earlier session have touched upon, so I won't go into them. And then hopefully we'll have some time at the end for discussion. Okay. I thought we'll start with the problem as it is currently. One, we are discussing sexual intercourse between two adolescents, or between an adolescent and an adult. So we're not talking about consenting adults here at all. We are concerned with children and psychologists, and that's the reason, again, you just can't be lawyers and social scientists who get into this discussion. We need psychologists, psychiatrists, especially child psychiatrists, because child psychiatrists tell us that the capacity to think and understand the consequences of our action is fully developed only between 18 and 21. We need to understand this important thing, because otherwise, children do a lot of things without understanding consequences. That's the reason why, we have 18 as the age at which you're given a driving license. We could give them at, there are children who drive scooters and cars when they're 12 years old. If your feet will touch the pedal, then you're ready. But we realize that they don't have the mental capacity to understand what will happen and when to brake, when to accelerate, and if you don't do it, there are consequences. And therefore, we need to appreciate this even in the context of consent for sexual intercourse. That is very important. Another point, even as I have been discussing, talking to some of the lawyers here, is also important to separate consent for sexual intercourse from consent for marriage. They are two different things. I might want to have sex, outside marriage before I'm married. I need to be capable of giving consent for it. Giving consent for marriage, because, just because I can have sex at 16 or even younger, doesn't mean I'm ready for marriage at that age. Marriage is a different ball game altogether. And I will, touch upon that later. These are two things that I wanted to place right at the outset when we talk, because we completely forget and we think because we are lawyers, law teachers, we are judges, we know everything, how to solve all the problems in society. We don't. If that were true, no sati should have taken place after 1829, and we know it did. After 1861, when the Widow Remarriage Act came in, all widows should have been able to remarry. Even today, there are, widows, including Brahmin widows for whom this legislation was enacted, don't remarry so easily. Society doesn't permit it. So we need to understand law is not the solution, neither amendments to the law. We need to understand this is a social problem, can only be solved socially. Law can facilitate it, but law cannot make it happen. So that's the first problem that we're dealing with, sexual intercourse between two adolescents or between an adolescent and an adult, which is considered illegal under the POCSO Act. While the POCSO Act increased the age of consent, from 16 to 18 for all genders. So before this, nobody cared about the male child or children of other genders. We only focused on the female child. Because again, we're kind of a little obsessed in our country with procreation. And since only the female can procreate, therefore, again, children being sexually active is not a new thing at all. What is new is criminalizing the sexual activity of children. Because if we look at the Dharma Sutras, which were composed between 600 and 400 BC, they advocate that a female should be married off as soon as she attains puberty. This is long before Islam was invented, so you can't blame it on the, people coming in from Afghanistan, from Turkey, etc., and say because they were invading, our girls were in danger, therefore we got them married off. No, it happened about 1,000 years before Prophet Muhammad was even born. Between 200 BC and 200 AD, when the Manusmriti was composed, Manu advocates that girls should be married off even before they attain puberty. So this is not new, please keep that in mind. And then of course came the other Smritikaras who are writing between 200 AD and 500 AD. I'm speaking as a professor of history and therefore it's informed information. You have the other Smritikaras also who advocate this. There's a Gupta period, the so-called golden age in Indian history, is when girls were being married off, or at least Brahmanical writers were advocating they should be married off even before they attain puberty. Of course, it didn't mean they immediately, had sex. They would have sex once they attained puberty, and that was a situation that prevailed for at least 2,000 years. We need to keep that in mind. In the Indian subcontinent, if not the world over even, girls were having sex long before 16 years. And what the Esteemed Advocate General pressed in the morning, the brief history of this, we realized that it was raised from 10. Imagine a 10-year-old girl having sex. Till Fulmoni Das died because of a ruptured vagina on the night of her wedding, having sex with a 35-year-old man who was a husband, nobody thought you should even raise it from 10 to 12. There was so much opposition to raising the age of consent from 10 to 12 years old. Then of course the rest of the history you know. So it's important to understand that it is through the POCSO that we have actually raised the age to 18 when an individual moves from being a child to an adult. Yeah, the rest of it, and just one thing, right? Changes in the law appear to be paternalistic and under the erroneous belief that raising the age of consent for sex will curb sexual assaults for adolescents under 18 years. Okay, so it is because we have now made the law, immediately now people are going to stop having sex or raping children because we have enacted a law, right? This thinking has several flaws, including presumption that all sexual activity under the age of consent is sexual assault. So as all of you know, those who are practicing and who have had these cases of children who are in consensual relations come to you, we know that every one of these sexual relations isn't the product of sexual assault. Many of them are a result of consent. if the interests of adolescents, families, and the justice system are the same, we are presuming that. We are presuming that what families want is what is good for the child, and what the child wants is what is good for the judicial system, not adolescents. A lot of these issues that we are facing in the court is because of this reporting. Whether it is about the tribal community that the vice president of the Advocates Association spoke about, because that's something we completely ignore, that there are people in India who have very different practices from many of us. We just assume that all of us are living, with the same culture, the same kind of practices. India is a very diverse. We keep saying this unity in diversity, but we completely forget we are a very diverse country with very diverse cultures. And therefore, there is no one solution for all. The solution will have to be as varied as the people and the cultures that are here. Right? And lastly, the assumption that families always know and do what is in the best interest of the child. We know that doesn't always happen. Right? So often, some of the cases that come is because families don't like the choices made by their daughters and sons. Now, it's very difficult for parents to think that their children, should be allowed to choose who they want to have sex with or even who they want to marry. But because we have this confusion, and therefore we end up forcing our children into actions that is neither good for them nor for us as a family, and most importantly, not for the society in which we are living in. What are the issues relating to consensual sex, that is between adolescents and the courts? In the case of XYZ versus State of Maharashtra and Nanda, which came up in the Bombay High Court in July 23, the court observed that majority of countries have set their age of consent at between 14 and 16 years. They said children in the age group of 14 are considered as capable of giving consent to sex in countries like Germany, Italy, Portugal, Hungary, etc. That the age of consent is 16 in London and Wales. That Japan has set the age of consent at 13. In Bangladesh, the age of consent is 16, as also in Sri Lanka. And the court therefore held that the age of consent for sex under the Protection of Children from Sexual Offences Act and the Indian Penal Code should be re-examined, since a large number of cases coming to courts involve minor girls who have had consensual sex in romantic relationships, and the courts were getting overburdened because of such cases. Now, because courts are getting overburdened, you hastily make a decision and say all sexual relation between 16 and 18 is consensual and we should not be criminalizing it. It's extremely problematic. We need to think that what is good for the courts may not be good. Similar observations have been made by other courts. I'm just, citing these three. One is the Bombay High Court, then the Madras High Court. Even before the pandemic in 2019, the definition of child under Section 2D of the POCSO Act can be redefined as 16 instead of 18. Any consensual sex after the age of 16 or bodily contact or allied acts can be excluded from the rigorous provisions of the POCSO Act. It went on to make the suggestion that on the premise, it's making this suggestion on the premise that adolescents above the age of 16 are capable of giving consent for sexual relations. And I would say keep in mind what psychiatrists have said about human capacity to understand consequences of your action doesn't develop fully till you are between the ages of 18 and 21. That is why I said, we can't assume we know everything. We need to consult child psychiatrists. On August 18, 2023, the Supreme Court sought a response from the Centre on a PIL which was seeking a direction to decriminalize the law on statutory rape, often invoked against 16 to 18 years old adolescents for indulging in consensual acts. So the court said, what does the government think? Which is a thing that will go back to the legislature to speculate on. As of now, this is the law. Section 375 of the Indian Penal Code, which was amended in 2013, raised the age of consent to sexual intercourse to 18. To keep it on par with the POCSO Act, because otherwise you find this is one of the huge problems in all these laws which keep getting enacted from time to time. Who is a child is differently defined under various laws. So the criminal law amendment was carried out in order to bring that consent on par with what the POCSO was saying. Further, under the Prohibition of Child Marriage Act 2006, a marriage contracted between two parties, where one of them is a minor below the age of 18 in case of girls and 21 in case of boys, can be declared void. It can be nullified by the person who was a minor at the time of the marriage within 2 years of attaining majority. So you're talking about another completely different issue. Consent to marry. Consent to marry, as you know, under this act is 18 years. We need to again separate these two things, consent for sexual intercourse from consent to marry. In Independent Thought versus Union of India in October 19, 2021, the two-judge bench, through two concurring opinions, read down exception 2 to section 375 of the IPC and raised the age of consent from 15 to 18 for the purpose of the exception. That is the exception where if you're married to a girl who is 15 years or younger, it will not be rape. Right? So now they read down that exception and made it 18. It also called for legal reforms to prevent and address violations of girls' rights due to child marriage. And of course, we have section 2(1)(d) of the POCSO, which says sexual relations with a person below the age of 18 would constitute a statutory sexual offense. It doesn't matter if there was consent, it still would be treated as sexual assault. I won't go into the saga because already the learned Advocate General has talked about it. But you just need to keep in mind that this is not very recent to us. 2000 years of having sex with children. Now it's a little difficult to suddenly think that children are not available, and therefore it is that's the reason why you still have child marriages being carried out on the one hand and men having sex with children also on the other hand, which is quite common. It's only when they come into court that we hear about it. If it doesn't come into court, we don't know anything about it. Doesn't mean it is not happening. The IPC created this also, I think we can leave out since we have discussed this. Now, one of the reasons POCSO has been welcomed is because it's only under POCSO that sexual intercourse with boys and children of other genders has been criminalized. And this again is nothing new that male children were being subjected to sexual abuse. None of these things are new. What is new is that we have criminalized those actions. Children had no protection till 2012. Doesn't mean that sexual abuse of children just began in 21st century. Sexual abuse of children has been going on for centuries. It's just in 2012 we finally acknowledge we cannot be tolerating it and pretending it is not happening or saying it is okay if it happens. Now in other jurisdictions, one UN convention says someone is a child till they attain the age of 18. Age of consent globally varies between 13 to 18. In Canada, it is only recently raised from 14 to 16. South Africa, consent for sex is 16 years, even though a child is defined as a person who is 18 years old. In the US, one of the craziest countries, consent varies according to states, and under the federal law, the age of consent is 18, but in many states, addition to age of consent, there is a minimum age requirement, and criminality of sexual intercourse with an individual who is above the minimum age requirement and below the age of consent is dependent on the age differential between two parties. Now that is what is called Romeo-Juliet law. The POCSO Act is dealing with criminalizing of sex with children below 18 is not the Romeo-Juliet law. The Romeo-Juliet law is about children between 16 and 18 having sex with somebody within that age variation of about 5 years. In the idea that they are romantically involved and therefore this is what would be considered as a crime. In fact, in Romeo and Juliet, way back in 16th century, perfectly legal to have sex. Children to have sex. They were even married off at that age. So slightly problematic when we use all these terms because sexual harassment of women used to be called Eve teasing. We are all the children of Eve, but by no stretch of imagination is it teasing when you're subjected to sexual harassment. It is only after Catherine McKinnon, coined the phrase sexual harassment, have we begun to look at what happens to us when somebody intrudes into our space or touches our body without our consent as sexual harassment. So, the moment we use these kind of words which have very different meaning, it somehow, I say, trivializes what happens. So I'm uncomfortable with the use of that phrase Romeo-Juliet law. Anyway, the age of consent in Japan was 13 till 2023. Can you imagine saying that a girl of 13 years old can? Again, that is another weird country because you have simulation. Men pay to go into buses, which are all just simulated. in order to sexually harass, people there. That is, the kind of country. So I don't think we should take that as a standard for deciding what should be the age for sexual consent. Yeah. Now, what is the ground reality? It is okay for us to talk about laws and the changes in law, but what is it that's happening on the ground? Are our children sexually active and we're pretending it is not happening? Like, I remember a few years ago when the actress Khushbu said, we need to have these, condom vending machines in order to ensure there are no unwanted pregnancies. Some of the people in Tamil Nadu rose against her. Like, what are you saying? We're all, Sati Savitris, we never have sex. A lot of, children who are in orphanages in Bangalore very often are children of Tamil women. So the reality is that young girls do have sex, whether it is consensual or not, we don't know, and there are unwanted pregnancies. Consequently, Khushbu was attacked, at that time. So we can't pretend these things don't happen, that our children are not sexually active. Children are sexually active. To what extent it is informed sexual activity is what we need to think, and to what extent the girls involved are giving consent to such sexual activity is another concern that we need to be worried about. So as per the National Family Health Survey conducted in 2015-16, 27% of young women between the ages of 20 and 24 years reported that they were married before the age of 18. So we have a child marriage law. They were saying they were married, and which inevitably would mean that they also have had sex. Whether they've had sex with another adolescent or whether it's an adult man that they have been married to is also a question to be asked. A recent study conducted by a private organization has shown that the child marriage law has more often been invoked by parents of girls who have eloped to get married to their lovers against parental wishes to prevent a marriage from taking place. POCSO and rape laws were also invoked in many of these cases. Now, this is a context where, as a president of our Kerala Federation of Women Lawyers said, caste and community issues. Parents don't want, in fact, I watch, because my mother is a Malayali, we watch Malayalam serials, Surya and Asianet, we watch. And the advertisement that keeps coming is, this marriage portal you will get Nayars, this marriage portal you will get Brahmins, this marriage portal you will get Christians. We are still 21st century India, we're still obsessed about marrying within the community. So when our children choose or fall in love with someone from outside the community, then it is the parents who are invoking these laws in order to punish the young man who has had the audacity to, get into a relationship with our girl. So it is not the young women or the girls who are reporting that they have been raped. It is the parents who are invoking these provisions. So it's important to understand this. The subject of sexuality and premarital sexuality is shrouded in silence and denial, but the existing data highlight that adolescents are sexually active long before the age of 18. The National Family Health Survey, again conducted in the same year, 2015-16, records 11% of girls had their first sexual intercourse before the age of 15. We're talking about 16, and they informed the surveyors that they had had sex before they attained the age of 15. And 39% said they had had sexual intercourse before the age of 18. 6.3% of women who got married at the age of 18 or above have reported having had their first sexual intercourse before 15. And all I will just keep in mind whether this was consensual or not. Globally also, UNICEF has estimated that 10 to 12% of adolescents in low and middle income countries have had sex before the age of 15. Now, at the Center for Child and the Law, which I was briefly coordinator of, we conducted a study. We did a lot of cases under POCSO and the JJ Act. And in one study that we did in Delhi, where we look at court cases, we are not looking at everyone who's reporting the crime, but only the cases which went into court. Between January 2013 to September 2015, we recorded about a total of 526 complaints of sexual assault under POCSO, okay, within those 2 years. 28% of these, of the 526, that is 186 complaints, concerned adolescents between the ages of 16 and 18. It should be noted that 167 of those 186 complaints, that is 90% of the cases, in the age group of 16 to 18 resulted in acquittal after the adolescent girl refused to testify against the sexual partner. So, to great extent, it must have been consensual relations, unless, of course, the girl was threatened from doing, and prevented from doing that. And of the total number of cases, that is out of 526 cases, 19%, that is 100 of the accused boys or the men who had had sexual relations had married the adolescent girl by the time the case came into court. 10%, that is 51 of the adolescent girls testified that their accused was a boyfriend, and another 7% testified that the accused was a friend. It was also found through regression analysis that the higher the adolescent girl's age, the greater the chance that she would not support the prosecution. In general, such cases, adolescent girls do not support the prosecution of a sexual assault case because they are in consensual relationship and never wanted to complain of rape. This is another aspect of the ground reality. Now let us look at the arguments that are there for lowering the age of consent from 18 to 16. Looking at it from the court's perspective, the three courts that I have mentioned earlier. So the Madras High Court judge, I think it was Justice Parthaban, who said, sexual relations with a female below 18 years attracts a strong arm of the law, sanctioned by the provisions of the POCSO Act, catching up with the so-called offender of sexual assault, warranting a severe imprisonment of 7 to 10 years. The punishment for such an offence includes rigorous imprisonment. So, it could be a young male below 18 who is not only being prosecuted for a crime, but also the consequence of this is imprisonment, which is essentially meaning that a young male who is in a consensual sexual relationship could have his whole future destroyed. As one of the speakers mentioned, we are not producing people who have been reformed by the prison system. You're producing criminals, because what happens if you haven't had an education, you haven't completed your education, you've been put into court and you come out, what are you going to be doing, right? While the court was dealing with the case, however, it was disclosed by the State Commission for Protection of Child Rights, Tamil Nadu, that majority of POCSO cases emanated from sexual relationship between adolescent boys and girls. We're not talking about an adult man having relationship with a child, a female child. We're talking about children having sexual relations with one another. So the Bombay High Court, on the other hand, said a large number of cases coming to courts involve minor girls who have had consensual sex and romantic relationships, and the courts were getting overburdened because of such cases. What do NGOs who work in the area? One is the Partners in Law and Development, and there are similar other organizations like HUC and all who are working on child rights. What are the arguments that they are placing? Firstly, for adolescents, exploring their sexuality on the one hand requires a range of healthcare services. You don't want unwanted pregnancies, then you need knowledge of contraceptions and access to contraceptives. So if you can't have access to contraceptives, consequences unwanted pregnancies. And young girls who are in school and get pregnant, then what happens to them after that, right? That is one thing. Two, you also may need emergency contraception where, suddenly you've had sexual relationship, the next morning you need to have the morning after pill. Can a young girl have access to, something like that? They also need prevention, diagnosis and treatment of sexually transmitted infections, and access to safe abortion services, amongst others. As we know, under the NTP, it is not like we all have the right to abortion. We don't have a right to abortion in this country. What we do have is medical termination of pregnancy under certain conditions. If it is sexual assault, if it is because of pregnancy and that pregnancy could be terminated and they have denied. They said there are people who have gone ahead and had babies. What is the problem with you going ahead and delivering this child? Women have delivered children at 16. I think it's a Punjab High Court or some such court, right? So in those kind of situations, you can't rely on the court to do what is right and what is in the best interest of the young female child. So that's one of the challenges if we don't reduce the age of consent from 18 to 16 for sexual relations. I'm not talking about marriage at all. I'm talking about reducing the age from 18 to 16 as put forth by some of these NGOs. Now, whether it is a consensual relationship or an adult, the other problem is mandatory reporting under the POCSO. In fact, most of these cases, like the cases of the tribals, goes to the police station and then to the court because of this requirement of mandatory raping, mandatory reporting, because if you don't, then there is punishment for those who don't report this, right? And therefore, the NGOs are arguing that we should not have this mandatory reporting because it compromises adolescents' autonomy and privacy in accessing healthcare. So you've gone to the hospital because you're pregnant. And if the doctor is going to report this immediately, then you're going to stop going to the hospital to get treatment because you're pregnant. And you know then the adverse consequences of something like that, right? Because a direct fallout of the law which criminalizes all sexual activity under the age of 18, doctors and hospitals are legally bound to report any case of underage sexual activity to the law enforcement agencies, especially for services like the medical termination of pregnancy and complaints of sexual assault. In fact, it is often the doctor's documentation of sexual intercourse which is gathered from the girl's story which precipitates sexual assault charges. Informed consent, right to privacy, and confidentiality of the adolescent girl are all undermined in these cases. Which is why I said we cannot assume that the interest of children, the interest of families, the interest of society, and that of the legal system coincide. They don't. What the child requires and needs is quite different from what the society might think the child requires and needs, and of course that could be very different from what the families and the state might think. So it's very important to keep these, aspects, because this is not a simple issue which can just be taken care of by amending the law. Besides, other changes like mandatory reporting, especially by hospitals, have increased family control on adolescent sexuality and strengthened regressive social norms linked to marriages. Because the solution that we have is, as I think our learned law advocate, Ms. Mahishi was saying, parents want to get the girls married off. 18 years. I think my generation was a time when, there were late marriages of women. But since then I have seen that girls are married off by the time they're 21. As soon as they finish college, they're married off. And if parents could get them married off at 18 or even lower, during the pandemic, there were many child marriages that took place. Young girls who are studying in the 10th standard, 12th standard were married off during the pandemic. So we know the obsession of parents, because we are still in 2000 years ago, where we think protecting the virginity and chastity of our daughters is the most important thing. That our duty as parents lies in safeguarding this virginity of our daughter. Once we've handed her over to the man that she is married to, then our responsibility is over. Otherwise, we have failed in fulfilling our responsibility. Consequently, we're destroying or ruining the whole life of our daughters. Because it's not like marriage is, a bed of roses. All of us, most of us in this room are married women, and we know what it is. Is a girl ready to take on the responsibility of marriage? And because we are afraid of her sexual activity, we prefer to get her married off and ruin her future than have our reputation ruined or have our daughter choose a partner we don't approve of. Because so long as she's a child, we can determine what to do with her. Once she's an adult, she will assert her autonomy as an adult. So we don't want that to happen. And therefore, the consequence is this. Other arguments being made, particularly by partners in law and development, this was in their write-up to the UN. They said it is inconsistent with the Convention of the Rights of the Child because the CRC considers all persons under 18 years as children whose rights the state and non-state stakeholders are obliged to protect. All rights under CRC are to be applied based on two principles. We all know about best interest of the child, but what we don't know is about the rights of the child according to the evolving capacity of the child. So a child's capacity at 5 years is very different from a child's capacity at 10, and from 10 to 16 to 18. So it's evolving. Children, learn to become independent by the time they are 12. But doesn't mean that they're mature enough to take decisions. It is only when one is about 18 years old, one is fully mature. But doesn't mean on certain other things. Children can decide what color clothes to wear, what they want to study. We give them sometimes the freedom to choose those things. So we need to understand that the Convention for the Rights of the Child talks about two basic principles to inform anything we are doing with regard to a child. One, the best interest of the child. Two, that this best interest for the child is related to the evolving capacity of the child. So you cannot make a law or make a blanket law which says that all children below the age of 18, if you have sexual relations with them, it is a criminal offense. You need to recognize this evolving capacity of the child to take a decision, especially in having sexual relations with another child or with another adolescent. If you don't make that distinction, it is like saying till you're 18, you don't have the capacity to decide about anything. And of course, in India, we do have an issue, right? We like to keep taking care of our children. And when there are adult men who are taking care of their mothers, right? They want to cook for them, they want to take care of them, look after them when they are sick. We don't want to let go our children. Whereas in the West it is different. They start teaching the child to be independent from the time they're about 5 or 6 years old. They even bathe themselves. Can you imagine allowing a 5-year-old to bathe herself? We have problems with all of this. We have problem in letting go. But that doesn't mean that the child is not ready to be independent. To do some of these things the child is capable of. You know, a 2-year-old child, 3-year-old child may not be able to bathe herself. But surely a 5-year-old child, a 10-year-old child, right? So similarly with other things regarding them, what they want to eat, all these things children, as they evolve, are capable, you know, as they grow older. And therefore, with regard to sexual intercourse, again, a child of 12 or 13 may not be able to make that decision, but a child of 16 may be able to do that. A uniform age of sexual consent, therefore, is problematic. False equivalence, this is a point that I made earlier, between sexual consent and minimum age of marriage is extremely problematic. The CRC recognizes that the capacities vary. Your capacity to consent to sexual intercourse is different from your capacity to consent to marriage. Why is that? The capacities required for sexual expression differ vastly from those required for marriage, which carries responsibilities to manage finances, enter into contracts, parenting, often lifelong in nature. To conflate such onerous responsibilities with those of sexual interest and experimentation are not rational or tenable in science as in human rights. Consequently, adolescent girls' lives are regulated in order to control their sexuality. So it is not because we want to protect the child against being sexually exploited as much as ensuring that the child does not get into sexual activity with persons we don't approve of. That is what it hinges on, rather than about, you know, the health of the child or its well-being. Incarceration on account of criminalization, that is what happens to adolescent boys, there is considerable prosecution, most often at the behest of the girl's parents, resulting in incarceration of boys and men from marginalized backgrounds. Their studies showed them that many of those who had been incarcerated were Dalit young boys, or, you know, from the lower caste communities, or, you know, some of the other marginalized groups. And in such cases, the couple has to tediously seek permission from courts to seek release of the girls from the shelter homes, because inevitably the girls land up in the shelter homes once she attains majority. Lifelong stigma and stringent punishment. This is another reason why they say you need to lower the age from 18 to 16. Given the draconian nature of the law on child sexual abuse in terms of criminalizing consensual adolescent sex, this puts youth from marginalized communities more so at the risk of being labeled as sex offenders in public records for life, in addition to facing increased incarceration. But there are a few arguments against lowering the age from 18 to 16. One of it comes from the Law Commission. So contrary to what the Advocate General said in the morning, the Law Commission is very clear. It says no lowering the age from 18 to 16. The report says that quite categorically. They've said it would lead to unintended consequences of a severe nature, including direct and negative bearing on the fight against child marriage and child trafficking. So they are afraid that if you lower the age for consenting to sexual relations from 18 to 16, the consequence will be child marriages will become more common and child trafficking. They're again conflating consent for sexual intercourse with consent for marriage. The two things are separate, but they're not treating it as separate. And they've again said you can't treat it as separate because of the kind of society in which we live, because oftentimes sexual intercourse happens within the context of marriage. So consenting to sex means consenting to marriage, and therefore if you reduce the age from 18 to 16, you could have more child marriages and girls being trafficked. It added that decriminalizing sexual relations would harm genuine cases of sexual assault and reduce the POCSO Act to mere law on paper. Given the vulnerability of girls and women in general, consent can be manufactured. That is one of the points that I myself have problem with. So while I might say yes, a child of 16 can decide autonomously to have sexual intercourse, can consent. The problem is, to what extent is this free consent? To what extent is this consent manufactured, or consent that is forced upon a girl because she's in a relationship with a boy? A lot of girls want to romance, but doesn't mean a lot of the girls won't have sexual intercourse. Oftentimes that romance results in sexual intercourse because then they are being told, you don't believe me, you don't trust me, you don't love me, and therefore they do. And this is girls and women who are educated even get into this kind of a situation. I know that from having been teaching, for nearly 40 years now, that many young women get, agree to sexual intercourse not because they want it, but because, they're being told that you don't love me, you don't trust me kind of thing. And then, they go through the whole thing of guilt and the problems that will come from it. Some of these girls who study in some of these institutions get pregnant, have repeated abortions without realizing consequences of abortion when later you want to have a child, because all that scar tissue prevents you from getting pregnant. These are things that we don't teach them. We don't want to do sex education when the reality is that, our children are sexually active. So that is one of the Law Commission's reservations, that given the vulnerability of girls and women in our country, consent can be manufactured. And therefore many genuine cases under POCSO may not come to trial, as the investigating agencies may declare them to be cases of consensual romantic sexual relationship. I mean, come on, the courts do that, right? You have a rapist and then the courts say, will you marry her? Case dropped. Does she want to marry somebody who assaulted her? No one's asking her that question. Right? So these kind of things can happen because it means fewer cases. The Bombay High Court's concern was there are too many such cases which are coming and therefore we are overloaded. But are you thinking about the welfare of the child involved here? So that's again something to think about. Diluting the age of consent will deprive a significant portion of the child population, especially young girls aged 16 to 18, of the protection of the special law and expose them to unchecked exploitation. Increasing incidents of grooming and cyber crimes such as sextortion are classic examples of how children in this vulnerable age group can be trapped and exploited. I'm sure quite a few of you are familiar with, this age of the mobile phone and its camera, the kind of things that are happening. Right? They take pictures of themselves because their hormones are working, so they want to be sexually active, then they are in a relationship, and the guy says, send me a picture of your body naked, and then you send, and he sends, and then at some stage, you can't keep looking at naked pictures, and with your hormones raging and not resulting in sexual intercourse sometime or the other. Then the other thing that happens, you consent to have sex with your boyfriend brings 3 other people along, and then you're sexually assaulted. So this is really a complex thing, and you can't just resolve this so easily as saying, let's amend the law and bring it from 18 to 16. Therefore, the Law Commission argued that any reduction in the age of consent will inevitably provide a safe harbor provision to coerce minor girls into subjugation, marital rape, and other forms of abuse, including trafficking. They also said that age of consent and age of marriage should not be conflated, but in practice, given the country's milieu, the two are intrinsically linked. Therefore, they said the reason why they are looking at lowering the age resulting in more child marriages. Studies have shown that victims themselves have identified friends and boyfriend or girlfriend as the most common perpetrators of sexual abuse. In fact, in the case of women, perpetrators of rape are more often than not people known to the woman. Some relative, some neighbor, some friend, some colleague. It is not as often that strangers subject women to sexual assault. So given that the Law Commission says, how can we think that every incident of adolescents having sex with one another is the result of consent? The very possibility of young girls being easily seduced in love traps and then sold off in trafficking cannot and should not be ignored. Any element of consent can be misused and may lead to children being at the mercy of adult abusers, thereby enabling prostitution and exploitation of children. Just one case that I was discussing a little earlier, a police officer, long before even the 2012 Act came in, at one such seminar was telling us about trafficking. We were discussing trafficking in children, and because the girls in rural areas, their exposure and information is far different from girls in urban areas. And again, girls coming from well-to-do families, the knowledge and information they possess will be very different from a girl growing up, in a home, low-income group, family, etc. So he talked about rural girls and Dalit girls, how they are lured into trafficking. He said, the girl will be standing in the bus stand, to go to school or college. One middle-aged woman will befriend her, and all these bus stop conversations that happen, bus stop friends that we have. She starts talking, becoming friendly, and then one day she points to some man who is very fashionably dressed or looking like he's got a lot of money and say, that guy finds you attractive. And this Dalit girl or any young girl, most of us, nobody cares for us at home, nobody loves us, nobody thinks we're important. Suddenly when, somebody says that guy who is, looking so flashy and smart is interested, you are, slightly interested. You may not be in love with him, but you think that, okay, somebody finds me interesting. And then, slowly that guy starts, actually making conversation and everything, and soon manages to win over her doubts. And he said the next thing that will happen is that he'll say, let us get married. I love you so much that I want to marry you. And then she'll say, all right, but you have to talk to my parents. And he will say, no, your parents won't consent. So let's run away and get married. Then once you're married, your parents can't say no. So in the pretext of running away to get married is to take the girl to a bigger city. In the context of Karnataka, to Bangalore or Mysore, stay in a hotel room. Staying in a hotel room with a man you're not married to or related to itself has compromised, your chastity. And then it makes it like, now we can't go home. But I'll take you to Bombay, where I have relatives, and then we'll get married there. Sell her off to the brothel. The police officer said within 24 hours, if you don't track a girl who's gone missing, she's lost. He said in his career, he managed to only save about 25 young girls like that. So the Law Commission, aware of some of these things, is telling us you need to be careful about that also happening, possibility of that. So you can't just be hasty and say, let's lower the age from 18 to 16. So what are the suggestions for change then? We know this is a real problem. So what do we do? How do we remedy the situation? Sexual assault, if it is so defined, can be tried under a more liberal provision, which can be introduced. This is the Law Commission's recommendation, which can be introduced in the Act itself, and in order to distinguish the cases of teenage relationship after 16 years from the cases of sexual assault on children below 16 years. Sorry, this is the Madras High Court in 2019. They said make a distinction between cases of girls in sexual relationship below 18 and those below 16. Close in age exceptions to statutory rape may be considered with the explicit understanding that they are not a panacea for all the problems with the current legislation. This is your Romeo-Juliet law. There is also a possibility that of a continued focus on age, obscuring the possibility of coercion even in close-in-age relationships. In so focusing only on age, primacy needs to be given to girls' testimony in the way it has been articulated in rape laws for adult women. Now, we are a very strange society. So on the one hand, we are arguing girls who are 16 years are capable of having sexual relations, but we are not yet ready to say that the girl may know her mind and therefore be able to speak the truth. We are not ready to accept her words as truth. We want other kind of evidence in order to support the fact that it is not rape or it is consensual. Mandatory reporting to social services and counselors instead of the police, with strict safeguarding of the confidentiality and privacy of young people. So instead of reporting to the police, let it be that when you have a case of a young girl coming in for abortion or for other purposes, that you report to social services and counselors, so that you first understand whether it is consensual or it is a question of sexual assault. Because, as I said earlier, most cases that are reported are because the doctors are reporting it since it is mandatory reporting that is required. Other recommendations, the partners in law and development and NGOs, they are arguing that sexual consent should be restored or reduced to 15 or 16. Law Commission said on the other hand that you need judicially trained minds aided by experts who alone will be able to appropriately determine whether the consent is in fact consent and free from any coercion, deception, fraud or undue influence. And therefore they recommended amendments to the Act to ensure cases involving tacit approval are not treated with the same severity as those that generally fall under the POCSO. It suggested introducing guided judicial discretion in the matter of sentencing in cases involving tacit approval between children in the age of the 16 to 18 years bracket, especially if the age of difference between the victim child and the accused is less than 3 years and when tacit approval is established. They also recommended discretion be used in punishing, especially if the accused has no criminal antecedents, bears good conduct after the offence, there is no element of undue force or coercion or any element of indicating child trafficking or having used that for pornographic purposes, etc. In conclusion, what I asserted at the beginning, law and law enforcement agencies alone cannot solve such a complex problem. It is a social problem, not a legal problem that can be solved through law and the legal system. What we need is access to comprehensive sexuality education. Yeah, don't give it to 8th standard kids, but at least the 10th standard children, 12th standard children, don't you think that they should have comprehensive sexuality education, so one, they understand their bodies and their bodily functions and consequences of sex, and also understanding the whole gamut of it. If they are sexually active as we are arguing, then don't you think that they should have information as to why that is happening and what the consequences are? We are so opposed to sex education in this country. Secondly, we need to develop independence of our girls, empower them. We'll constantly keep telling them what to do and then we say, okay, now you know how to have sex, but in other matters you don't know what is good for you. You need to develop that autonomy of the girl child so that she knows and she's aware and she will beware of people who can trap her in these love relationships and take advantage, and know when to make the distinction between when somebody is really interested in her and when he is not. Access to sexual and reproductive health services. We don't even make that available to women, so I don't know when we'll make this available to girls. But it is important. If we want to lower the age from 18 to 60, we definitely must make access to sexual and reproductive health services. We need a gender-sensitive and efficient law enforcement agency. Social support for young people and adolescent girls when they fall out with their families. Because the number of killings, the so-called honor killings, when they're all murder in the name of caste or community. I don't know why we call them. There's another misnomer for something which is a straightforward crime. If we can provide a safe haven for them, then they will not be running away. They will come to places where they would be safe. The case of Mathura, right? She ran away with her lover. Consequently, when she is brought to the police station, she is sexually assaulted by the policeman. She was an adolescent girl. Right? So if we can provide safe haven for girls, and young people who fall out with their families, is another way of protecting them from these things. Acceptance of adolescent sexuality, comprehensive sexuality education, and a supportive state apparatus can actually create more options for adolescents to enjoy healthy sexual relations rather than enter into marriages for which they may be ill-prepared or just, without thinking too much, asking for or getting amendment to the POCSO Act and reducing the age of the child from 18 to 16. Thank you so much.
Thanks, good ma'am. That was a very informative and very interesting seminar session that we just heard. Next we have Nishandini IPS, DIG of Police, Trivandrum Range. She is a person who has to deal with the topic that we are going to discuss on a daily basis. Somebody who has seen probably the dark side of the society, somebody who has dealt with the practical side of the topic that we are discussing, somebody who has immense knowledge of the ground reality of the topic that we are discussing today. Ma'am, it's a pleasure to have you amongst us and we'd love to hear from you.
So, it's really a great pleasure. Indeed, it's a recognition for me to be present here, to be invited as a guest here, to speak over an important and a very sensitive, very, very sensitive topic that we are dealing with. And it's an honor, really, because I know it's not talking to police officers, like, it's something that I'm talking to a well-learned, a vibrant and vocal community in the criminal justice system. It's really, really exciting and really anxious also to a certain extent. Though, you may deal with so many things, but one thing, the excitement and anxiety is that, as I said, it's a vocal and vibrant community who work for the cause of the nation. Secondly, this topic itself is very, very sensitive. So to start with, thank you so much, ma'am. I think I also read the same paper that you have read. So somewhere my presentation will overlap, but wherever it's overlapping, I would like to fill it with my own experience in the field. I have put in 15 years of experience in police. I got into police in 2008, and then I worked extensively in the area of children. Apart from this police department, I got a deputation for, I'm really passionate to work for the children, with the children. So I got deputation to the Women and Child Department, and I worked for as state coordinator Nirbhaya Cell, where I had an opportunity to rehabilitate and ensure their rehabilitation of the sexually abused children, girl children especially. So there I got really enthusiastic about working for the children and how the children. Initially I was under the assumption or presumption that because I'm from Tamil Nadu, I think Tamil Nadu people are so there is rural urban divide and the cultural norms are very, very strict in the rural area. So I thought children in Tamil Nadu or other parts are really suffering, and in Kerala it's not the case in Kerala, because it's more or less an urban area where everybody has exercised are aware of their rights, and but after working in that Nirbhaya, I understood that I'm wrong, and in that understanding, because children over here in Kerala, the so enlightened society, the right-based society, the literate society undergo the same trauma as the children in any part of the country or in that way any part of the world. So then I got into, I got Chevening Scholarship, and I did my Masters in King's College London on child protection, international child studies. Then I became, ardent advocate, we can say, of sexual abuse against boys. There are so many people to talk for girls, but I am here to talk for boys, sexual abuse against boys. So that's one of my passionate topic, and anybody who is here who have the same inclination as I have, I would like to, look forward to work with you, to get enlightened from your knowledge, to share knowledge and all these things. Over to this topic now. Revisiting POCSO law to decriminalize consensual, non-exploitative sexual activity of adolescents. I am here to talk about my own experience. So I'm here to, I'll tell you 3 experiences that I have got in my career. There was a case, I was here as DCP Law and Order Kochi City for some time back, some 7-8 years back. So girl, 16 years pregnant, boy, 14 years. The girl became pregnant, and then when we asked the girl who is responsible for that, she revealed that it's a boy who is a 14-year-old, who is her own brother. So family was shocked, because both parents go for work and children locked up in the house. So they don't know what they are playing. They say that they played dad-mom game, Achanamma Kali. So they didn't really know what could cause harm or how it escalate and all those stuff. So the family came, pleading not to reveal, threatening suicide, then Kuta Atmartha. Like Atmahatya. Yeah, I'm sorry. Kuta Atmahatya. So we will commit suicide. Family, we will commit suicide. The entire family will be shattered. So this girl, as we say that she went to the health service, ma'am was pointing out, she went to the health service. We always shift the ball of game, shift the responsibility. We are good at it, basically. So mandatory reporting. So promptly reported to police. Now they all in front of us. They say that if you take case, next day I will pour kerosene and commit suicide in front of your police station. If my boy is arrested, my girl is taken away from me, this is going to definitely happen. He has taken ethical dilemma. Seriously, it's really painful process. So it's really painful process, I can't tell you. Then we got some child services into it. We got the family. It took 2 days. But then we have a pressure, the media, who says that despite knowing they are delaying this, so dilly-dallying things, they want to cover up, the child is pregnant and all those stuff. The information leaks now, everybody is a journalist, every person is a journalist. So information goes here and there, shelter. You don't know, before your conscious understand the news comes in the flash, actually. So we are like, it is 2 days to convince the family to accept that this is something very important that we have to do. It's really not possible for us to hide this. Tomorrow something may go wrong. That is also again keeping our security in mind. As a law enforcement agency, I spoke, it's only the concern of me, our security, my organization. I'm not bothered about the family. But somehow I have to get this family on my side. So I'm trying to convince. Yeah. You are like, you are very good, this is why very good, all this stuff. But finally we got it, registered. With a lot of this thing, counseling did, and we got it registered. So we just, even now, I feel it's haunting. But unfortunately, I'm helpless, or we as law enforcement agencies are helpless.
What happened finally?
Finally, I didn't follow it up, ma'am, because after some time you get transferred with this thing, that thing, and we have handed over to Childline for the counseling, and the boy was, produced before JJB. Once when they are in the criminal justice system, they undergo the same process. Till the time we are all concerned, this is a very normal thing because we have so many things to do and we don't bother about each and every child. That's why I put a disclaimer that I am bothered about my organization and everyone are. We are not bothered about the child. We are not bothered about the trauma of the child. We just forget and we are busy with engaging other activities. So what happened? This is a question that I have. So then we also think that, it's something very wrong because we have stick to the cultural norms, right? We are like, I am brought up in a society where everybody says that having sex before marriage, leave about 18, before marriage is a sin. You lost your chastity, you are not truthful to your husband, right? It's not age of consent, it is cultural norms still exist. Before marriage, I got married at 25. Before marriage, if you lose your virginity, then it becomes like guilt. You carry that guilt. Oh, I'm not, very truthful to my relationship. I'm not truthful to my husband. As if your husband is. Nobody asks because it's a biased society towards women. And the chastity is only the property of women, we call it. We don't question the chastity of men. Right? The case study 2. Girl, 16 years, boy 17 years, they fell in romantic relationship. Family came to know after 2 years of relationship, that is when the boy completed 18 and girl is still in the age of 17 or 17 and a half, where POCSO is still prevalent. You can register the case. So POCSO case framed. The parents, ma'am was saying that parents don't want it. It is the choice of parents, it's not the choice of girl. Choice of parents. Parents don't want to continue this relationship. So they just came, reported it that my child was abused by this boy, so you take case. So we framed the POCSO case. It's very difficult to collect evidence because the girl denied to take forward to the medical examination. And then when it comes to deposition also, the girl will say, yeah. And court also takes a lenient view, as ma'am was saying, that After some time, court, there are a lot of reasons. I'm again pointing, I'm no disrespect to the court, but again, as an organization, we are concerned about our own priorities. So a lot of filing of cases, and when the settled cases are there, we call it, quickly and say that, okay, settled cases, so my pending cases are reduced. So this is our organization that we look at it. So the POCSO cases and prosecution, again, the girl comes and says that now I got married, so court takes lenient view, yes, you got married. As if the sexual assault is the logical conclusion of any sexual assault is to get married to a man. It's not, no? Sexual assault, I have trauma, I have difficulty understanding, I have confusion, what I have undergone. I have guilt, I have shame. Whether my body is purified or, I don't know, something went into my body at that age. Now we all understand, we're all developed, we all informed adult, or we can understand the maturity is so much that something went inside my body, whether it is dirty, whether it is bad, whether it is good, I don't understand. At the age of 15, 16, 17, something went inside my body. So this is what, so we say that family determine the life choices of adolescents, completely denying the rights of children. Criminal justice system become the mute witness to the abuse of right of children. Though there are a lot of advocates of rights, child rights, and so many people in every walks of life, but we become mute spectators because we are bound by law. Case study 3, girl 17 years pregnant, boy 15 years. Girl becomes victim, boy becomes perpetrator, irrespective of the age, right? We only register case and say that now girl is pregnant, so we want evidence. The DNA is available, so take a blood sample of boy and register, produce him before the DJB, CCL, arrested, apprehended, all the stuff, we close the file. I have always the question that whether the boy of 15 years have the mental maturity of girl of 17 years. We all know that girls mature very fast, right? Not physically, it's also mentally. Mental maturity of girls are so high when compared to boys of the same age. So I always have a confusion, who is the victim and who is the accused? In fact, I went on saying to my officers that why can't you register another case against the girl where the boy gives a complaint and let the court of law decide which one is the right case to proceed. Let there the discussion. Let us initiate a process of, pointing a girl for abusing a boy. Yeah? So whether you are victimization or criminalization, despite mutual consent, these two growing adults have mutually consented, having equal rights, but one becomes a victim, one becomes the criminal before the law, before the same law that we are talking about. So before taking into all this, these are the 3 case studies that I put forth before you. Before taking through this, prevalence of sexual activity amongst adolescents is not insignificant. Ma'am was reading about this in the same National Family Health Survey, but she was reading about the other part of it, married girl. But I have taken the different, thank God I have taken something different, otherwise it would have been repetitive. So 11% of the girls had their first sexual intercourse before the age of 15 and 39% of the girls before the age of 18. So the prevalence is not insignificant, it is quite significant, which needs our attention. UNICEF estimated 10 to 12% of adolescents in low and middle income countries have sex before 15 years of age. When it comes to Kerala, rapid increase in POCSO cases committed by CCL that I am talking about, where both the victim and the perpetrator are below 18 years. We had, I took the data yesterday. So in 2020 we had 159 cases, 2021 it rose to 202, 2022 it rose to 232, and now 2023 it's only hardly 9 months. We have already reached the last year target of this thing. So it's quite steadily increasing, we can claim. So we can't allow it to raise and sit and talk about this for so long, because every child is important for us and every child matters to the development of the society. The question is, despite numerous law to protect children, are the children really protected while granting their rights completely? Are they allowed to exercise their rights properly? With so many stakeholders to work for the children. But what is the pathetic situation the children go? I was thinking, when I was child, nobody talked about it, right? We were all child. Nobody talked about it. Why so much talk, so much insistence on children, child rights, all this stuff? We never know what child rights was. Mother comes and beats. Even when I was in college, I got beaten up by mother. My rights were totally violated. Completely violated. But you have to follow all the norms, social norms, strict culture. The girl has to be here, 6 o'clock, you have to enter the home. No, after 6 o'clock, no. So my rights were completely violated, but nobody talked about it. But now, this era is completely, this is the need of the hour, that every child need to be, educated about their rights. Because of the reason that the information, in those days, I remember I was asking about to my mom when the stay free, advertisement comes in this thing. I asked my mom, what is the stay free? I'm also staying free, no? So my mom said, sure, you will get to know when you want to know. But now my 11-year-old girl child comes and asks me, what is stay free? I am bound to answer. For the reason that I am not the only source of information for her. She has a lot of sources of information. She will only go, if I deny that information, she will go and ask the Google God. And Google God will readily give answer which is most probably not appropriate to her age. I don't say it's a wrong information, which is not appropriate to her age. So as a parent, I am bound to inform my child age appropriate content. What is this thing? What is condom? My child in fact asked me, what is condom? I asked, where did you? In one cinema, the person was saying, but I don't understand, Amma. I said, can I take some time? I will explain it to you. Because we are born in that culture where you don't dare to ask your mom or dad, what is this, what is that, and things like that. So, but then my daughter asked me, so I took a time, because we can always have the time, and we as a parents also face the challenges, to rear these children, to lead these children to their overall developmental path. Coming back to this, there's a confusion. There's a developmental needs and legal obligations. Developmental needs, as we rightly say, 14, 16, 18 years are period of exploration and experimentation. Lot of hormones rush in. When you see a boy, like butterflies fly from your stomach to this thing, and ma'am was saying she's interested, so I'm also interested. Why not? Am I not looking beauty? Yeah. If a person is interested, I'm also interested. So experimentation, exploration, romantic relationship is part of their, every human being undergoes this. But in the name of legislative lens, we call the sexual engagement is against norms. We say that it's not correct. Age of consent is 18. So only after 18 you will be able to take any sexual activity. Before that, you should not take anything. We know, so we don't give them any information. We only say that you should not do. Right? That is the Indian context. I think in Western countries also, which I will talk about because I had an opportunity to stay in Western country for some period while I was doing this thing. So I was interested in their, the education system. The way ma'am was talking that they have a interesting, curriculum. Which talks about, it is called PSHE, Psychosocial Health Education. From the small children, they teach the psychosocial health education. Meaning, from the small child they teach how to brush. Here also we teach, but then it is not a very, very formulated curriculum. How to brush, how to wash your hands, how to wash your private parts, how to keep your things. So slowly they are exposed to certain things, and then over a period of time, how your body matured, how you have to have this relationship with other person, and what will you affect when you have a relationship, how it impacts your mental health. It's not physical, basically they deal with. It's about the mental health that they talk about. And after 16, they talked about the unwanted pregnancy, unprotected sex. So they just give that in a very, very slow dose. So we can't, In our system, it is not that. Suddenly we remember my child is going to attain puberty, so I have to explain puberty, right? So I got one book, I gave it to her. So she told me that, Amma, this all I know, Ma. I was shocked. How do you know? My school people, we all discuss. So peer group, influence of peer group. It is very, 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 very important that we keep them well informed, the right information. So I said, Amma, I also know that you know, but I want you to understand what is the right information. That's why Amma bought this book. So she read through and she was explaining it to her friends. So which I don't know. Even you are in a this thing. It's very easy to talk about things to other children, but it's really very difficult to talk to your own children about these things. Even today, when we are all aware that this is very important for this thing, and whatever is important, we are very readily happy to give to our own children. But this subject, no, we have inhibitions to talk about this. So this is the children's requirement. Now today, children want to know what is wrong, what is right. The challenge that the children of digital era faces is not the lack of information, the way we were facing. There was a lot of lack of information. And my mom was a source of information about Stay Free. There was no one to talk about Stay Free. I can't ask anyone. But now, it's not lack of information, it is flooding information to believe what is right, what is not. It is confusion. The children are in utter confusion, what to believe, which to take, what not to take. So it's really, really important we open up and talk to them, sensitize them about the importance of. So this is this thing. So the confusion is what we have to do. So POCSO, as we all know, it's a very, very beautiful act. Very, very strong act, and it has addressed the year-long suffering of children, especially the boy children, as I was claiming that, especially the boy children, which was not at all recognized prior to 2012. I was in 2008, even in 2012, when the act was enacted, we were like, only when girl comes and says that this is thing, we invoke POCSO. Then only in 2014-15, we realized that this act is a gender neutral act. To understand that this act applies to men also or boys also, it took 3 years for us to, if any boy comes and this thing, we only invoke 377. We don't go for this POCSO because we assume and presume that we know everything, first of all. Secondly, we don't learn after getting into service or whatever this thing, we don't learn. Then, thirdly, we deny that this thing has happened to boys. So it took 3 years, even after the enactment, even after the law or the world has, awakened to, recognize the right of the boy. But law enforcement agency, in my knowledge, I don't claim it from the university, but in my knowledge, it took lot of sensitization. It requires lot of sensitization. Come on, man, boy is also a child who will come in the ambit of POCSO Act. So it requires lot of sensitization. This POCSO, have some sort of erroneous belief that all sexual activity under the age of consent is sexual assault. We don't believe in that romantic relationship or the right of a child to explore, the right of the child, the evolving capacity of the child is undermined. Where we don't understand that it is the problem of hormone that rushes in, not of a boy or a girl. So interest of the adolescent, families and justice systems are the same. No, it's not the same. The interest of child is different, the interest of family is different. The interest of law enforcement agency is different, the interest of the court is different, as I was mentioning about. So these interests are different, but we believe that everybody have same interest. Reporting crime is the best interest of adolescents. Families always know what to do. In many cases, it's the family, as ma'am was saying, that because my parent don't want to have this relationship, it is reported. It's not I'm lost there. It's only my family that prevails, or the reputation of my family is prevailing there. So the counter effects of this misbelief or the belief that we follow is that adolescent sexuality is not accepted. We don't speak about it. We don't talk. We don't sensitize them that this is your right. What you're undergoing is every human being undergoes, right? We hide. We make them hide. They also undergo. they think something which I am undergoing is not correct, but I want to hide, right? Till the age you attain, you have your boyfriend after 18 and you talk to your boyfriend on certain things. Only with boyfriends you can talk these kind of things. So at that age you think that what I am undergoing is something which is not correct. I want to hide this from my mom, I want to hide this from my dad, I want to hide this from everyone. So non-acceptance of adolescent sexuality, which makes her private space more private. She sees everything, thinking that nobody knows what she's undergoing. But I understand everybody would have undergone the same, phase of development. It's a phase of development that every child undergoes. So then, denial of health care. As ma'am was speaking in her this thing, she was saying that a child goes to the pregnant girl goes to there, it gets reported. Then the next child who is seeing in this vicinity of the child says that okay, it gets reported. Then my children will go to jail. Okay, so that is the thing, because they don't want to see the other person whom they are in romantic relationship to suffer, to get into the clutches of law. Then add to it, the stakeholders also say it is because of you the boy is in jail now. The guilt, the shame she undergoes just because she had agreed to his demand, or we don't know what is the story behind this particular case, but everybody thinks that girls are at fault. Yeah. So denial of health care, the girl doesn't seek for support. Whatever she's undergoing, she has to suffer all alone. Discrimination against boys has its long-term impact on their life. So this is something which I was talking about, that a boy becomes a perpetrator. The boy has self-blame. He is seen as someone who has committed a sin in this society. I wonder if till 18 years of age you say that sex is bad. So after getting married, you don't get child. Then you didn't get your children so far. So there is something which is very confusing, no? For the child to have 18 years, you say that it is too bad to have this thing. But after you get married, you are seeing children without this thing. How is children? Now there is a lot of technology, but then I'm saying. So this is something which is like discriminatory against boys. Says that, okay, now you are produced before the JJB for committing such and such act, which is not accepted by the society, right? So I carry the guilt, I carry the shame, I feel I am worthless, I have been humiliated by the system, I am complete zero, I am failure in the system. He get into drugs, he get into all sort of this thing, suicidal, sexual aggression. In fact, for committing one sexual aggression in post-marriage relationship, there are many papers, evidence suggests that this boys who have abused or who themselves have become a victim of abuse and who have been appointed, who have been guilty of committing such sexual offences, carry this guilt somewhere the other way. They want to settle the score. So it creates lot of complicated problem for the society, for the women community as such. Once when he gets married, he becomes burden for the family. He becomes burden for the society. So it's very, very, very important that when we talk about girl child being abused, we talk about boys being accused also. It's very, very important for the entire nation that we should speak. Then comes our own problem of piling of cases. We have in police stations, we are also overburdened with so many cases. In court, there's again the piling of cases happening, and then lenient view becoming a norm. We just say that okay, it's fine. And just that okay, anyway he is getting married, no? Fine. So that is ultimate end of assaulting me. When a person if I have a child, will I agree to it? If my child is being followed, groomed, and molested, sexually assaulted, and then finally this guy comes to me and say that okay, now everything has happened, I will marry your child. Will I agree? No. Then as a system we are silent. We are keeping our mouth shut to say that okay, this guy is married, fine. Okay, you get married, fine. So this is something which we have to think. We as a part of criminal justice system, we need to think broad, whether this same law applies to my family, whether the same law applies to my child. No. When it is not applicable to my child, then why I enforce on other children? Yeah. So these are the counter effects that the children have. Now the issues of consent, raising the age of consent. Ma'am has spoke very lengthy about the age of consent. It's decreasing the age of consent for and against, whether we should decrease or we should not decrease. It has gone to a lot of chambers before it was raised from 16 to 18. And now if you want to go back to any old system, we need to think really well, because you can't come back again and say that, oh no, we have committed this mistake. That's again, you are creating a lot of problem in the society. So raising the age of consent is concern. If we talk about in the subsequent slides, I will explain you what I am going to talk on this in the mandatory reporting. Then the third is victim shaming and blaming, which is counterproductive to the overall development of children, both the boy and the girl. When they are in adolescent relationship, we will say, and the peer group also says that, oh, these children, oh, they are very bad, oh. Then they get isolated from their peer group, right? So these are the things. So I recommend a measured step, not a drastic step of reducing the age of consent from 18 to the old 16. So the way forward, modifying the mandatory reporting provision for the health workers and parents. It's not repealing the mandatory provision, it is modifying. Modifying means the doctors and the health workers and the parents should report to the social service, should report to the counselors, because any day the child needs support. You can't just deny and cover up. Then you will again promoting this sexual violence, because the family don't want to report for the reason that the reputation is attached with the sexual assault of the child. So I don't want to lose my reputation by saying that I have, if the mandatory reporting is repealed, then I will silent. I'm happy that I'm not reporting. My reputation is not taken at task. So it's like modifying the mandatory reporting provision for the health workers and parents. They need not report to police. Why they suddenly have to enter into criminal justice system? Whether it is required, we have a lot of cases in between. I want to deviate. We have so many cases wherein we have 7 and 8, 9 and 10 of POCSO cases, right? 7 and 8 especially. Umma vachu. That's it. Simple. So simple case of adolescent behavior to kiss a girl. Remember in our age how many cases would have been registered? Kissing, yeah. So, oh yeah, I'm sorry. So kissing, this boy has kissed the girl, okay, the classmate. We say that how many boys would have kissed during our childhood, or how many boys would have kissed, so how many girls in their childhood, which has never been this thing. Still we enjoy our rights, still we are happy about it. But now we take case against them. 7 and 8 of POCSO Act, we say that, oh, you have kissed that girl child. And we don't know whether this kiss was initiated by the girl child or the boy child also. But we assume and presume that the boy is always at fault. How discriminatory the laws are, no? Though we are a women community here, it's really law is really discriminatory against men sometimes. Yeah. I don't know, some feminists, don't attack me. Yeah. So I recommend reporting to social service and counselors, mandatory reporting. It's modifying, it should not be repealed. It should be reported to social service and counselors, wherein we need to equip them to handle it productively. First, the trauma of the child need to be addressed, and then the criminal justice system comes in. Because the ultimate objective of this act is to protect the child, not to protect our social norm. We always have the disbelief that to protect the social norm we formulate law. No, the objective of the law is to protect the child, to ensure that the development of the child is ensured, to ensure that the child is happy mentally, physically, everything is ensured. That is the ultimate aim, right? So safeguarding the confidentiality and privacy of young people. Then closing age exceptions to statutory rape, that is to dismantle the notion that all the adolescent sexual relations are rape. And also it provides adolescents that you have right to explore yourself. So we can say that close in age exceptions to statutory rape, like plus or minus 2. There are a lot of law commission suggestions saying that 12 years below they can have plus or minus 2, and 18 years below you can have 3 years, 5 years age of gap, and there are a lot of recommendations, which again a detailed discussion has to go in on this close in age exceptions to statutory rape, where we can think of doing forward. Differentiation between consensual non-penetrative sexual assault and consensual penetrative sexual assault. How it makes, as I was saying with 7 and 8, 3 and 4, there is a lot of difference between these two, right? And also the abusive and non-abusive sexual assaults. So abusive sexual act, we can't call as non-abusive sexual assault, it is act, the sexual act. Abusive and non-abusive sexual act, how it defines, how we can this thing. So these are the larger area where we need to deliberate, discuss in the interest of the children. This forum can take it forward. I know there are a lot of dignitaries from other states also. So we need to discuss on these lines. It's not a simple thing that you just come and say that, okay, now 18 to 16 is what, we are undergoing a lot of problems, so come down. No, it doesn't go that way. We need to deliberate on so many nitty-gritties before going back. So the word of caution, again I'm repeating, this slide is being repeated. It's a complex social issue and limitations in legal instruments. Legal instruments are only, any law is effective only when the larger majorities, accept that, right? That's why it's being legislated at the parliament or, legislative assembly. Because it is by the people, for the people. So you can't make a law and say that now I form. It is not, we are a democratic country. Any law has to be effectively implemented. I cannot make it effectively implemented. We managed to get the Child Marriage Act, but still we have child marriages happening. It is accepted. We managed to get the Dowry Prohibition Act, but still there is silent crime happening in the society. Dowry is accepted even in our home, even in my home. My mother gives me, I happily get it. I don't say I don't want dowry, my mother gives, because I am a daughter, So everybody, and we don't call it dowry, we call it as like wish, gift, inheritance. Oh, boys also get inheritance, fine. After mother and dad, like if it is inheritance, it's fine. That's fine. Shridanam, yeah, Shridanam. So all these things are like, we happily, silently agree to it. And then we say that we have legislation. No, legislation will become powerful only when it is accepted by the majority of the people, not by the enforcers, not by the practitioners. We cannot make it effective with the effort that police will always make. Oh, we will go and find whether a child marriage is happening in this house, whether dowry is, you got dowry. We can't do that. We will only receive the complaint and register the case. We have a lot of limitations to enforce law. So this is something where the law has its own limitations unless and until it is accepted by the majority. So the point now here is we need to empower the society to accept that the adolescent sexuality is a reality. It's not something I undergo, you undergo. It's something which is every child undergoes. Every child, it's a phases of development. And sexual and reproductive health. We all know that there is some topic called reproduction in plus 2, right? My zoology teacher never taught me that reproduction, this thing. I agree that 80% of people here agree to it, that never ever our zoology teacher had taught that how this thing. Even if they talk, I was talking to one person, so she was saying that, I was wondering how did the sperm goes into that vagina. So she was like, after some time we were discussing on how we were taught in the zoology. So she was saying that, I wondered how the sperm enters into vagina. So she doesn't know how this enters. Well, we will only see in the book that some sperm is coming and zygote is penetrated and the nucleus forms and all those stuff, but we never know how it happens. What a paradoxical situation that children, as a child, we have undergone. It's very, very unfortunate that we are not informed about this, the basic right of human being. It's not something which is alien to our, culture, alien to our species. We can say we are mammals. It's not alien, but we want to know. So nobody talks about it. We talk about reproduction, but we never talk about reproductive health. So it's high time that we talk about reproductive health. Gender sensitive and effective law enforcement, I was saying that law enforcement cannot be effective unless and until it is accepted by the majority of the people. Social support, and lastly the sensitization of stakeholders. Every stakeholder should be sensitized. We should not blame. Now the child comes and report. If a policeman says, it is your fault only, no? What will we do? Because of you, the guy goes to jail. Sensitization of stakeholders. If the stakeholders is not sensitized, there you're cutting out the right of the child and you're putting a full stop on the implementation of the law. Even if the child is coming and disclosing you that something has happened to me, if my policemen are not sensitized, if the judiciary is not sensitized, if the support system is not sensitized, then there's no point in having such law. So sensitization of stakeholders is really, really, really important. Finally, the role of stakeholders. We need to create a conducive environment for the adolescent to enjoy healthy sexual relationship rather than forcing them to enter into marriage for which they are ill prepared. Ma'am said in the slide. So they are ill prepared for the marriage actually. They don't know. Just because he has abused me, I had to, that is the logical conclusion of the assault. So I have to marry. So for that, we need to accept the comprehensive sexuality education, what you undergo. Then only the ultimate justice goes to the last mile connectivity will happen. Otherwise, we'll all try to handhold the victim, but never the victim was handholded. Never the last mile connectivity has happened. Victim remains a victim, the trauma goes. Then we all celebrate that POCSO has survived it so many years, and we are protecting, we are listening. So now, the need of the hour is joining our hands together for a common cause. Not because children don't have voices, but because their voices are ignored in the context of social norms. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for the wonderful speech. In fact, it was the practical side, the case studies. I'm sure everybody would agree to me that those case studies, those ground level realities, if not you, I know how far we are exposed to that ground realities. Thank you for that wonderful speech. And I'm sure that with those two eminent speakers, most of us would be filled with many questions, doubts. So we've scheduled for a small interactive session, and I welcome all of you for the interactive.
This question to both the speakers. As we are talking about fixing of an age to give consent, is it not important to fix the age even for the boy? You mentioned about a case where the girl was elder to the boy, and there are instances where the girl may lure the boy, and boy is also our child. That boy child also has to be protected. So is it not important to fix an age for the boy who is involved in this? Can the boy, force a girl as tender at the age of 14 or 15 years? Can he force a girl with the age of 17 or 18 years? Or can he, will he have the maturity to force a girl to get into this?
Gender specific. All children, any gender, they're covered by it already. It's just that our perspective is, focused on the girl child, so we don't implement it. As Madam was saying just a little while earlier, we don't look at the male child. It took years for them to realize POCSO covers all children, not just the girl child.
No, where is the question of the boy is given?
It's already there. Consent is consent for both girls and boys. It doesn't say only girls' consent is 16 or 18. All children, age of consent is 18. So if there is a boy of 15 years and there is a girl of 17, then accordingly you have to proceed. But since both are adolescents, and our focus is that the female is always a victim, which comes from, we keep thinking about women as a weaker sex. So our problem is in perception rather than in the law. Law is not making that distinction.
So does it mean that a boy of 15 years is involved?
If he reports it, then she will be the accused. But we are not doing it that way. That is all. The law doesn't say only girl victims.
Madam, I would like to say something about this so-called consensual relationship decriminalization. At the same time, we discussed that we will have to think whether that consent was free from force, fraud, whether the consent was free. But what are the standards to determine that? Either you decriminalize it, there has to be a sanction, or you don't decriminalize it. These are the, and one more point, madam. Suppose if this romance happens, consent happens, and we accept it, then what about their development, their career, their studies? All this is not affected or what? So sanction has to be there. You cannot decriminalize it. That is my question to you. And another question to the AIG ma'am is this, that we are thinking about the exploitation of boys also. But if there is a woman who is an abuser of a girl child and male child, both, how in the act she is not described as an abuser in section 3. So isn't it a lacuna? Question? I am saying that we were talking about the consent, whether it is free from force, fraud, we have to determine
Sure.
it.
No, that is
there is
the
no
reason.
standard of
Thanks,
determination.
I remember. Yeah, that is the reason I think both of us, from the partners in law and development, their recommendation is where we've taken it from. They say very clearly you're reporting to the social service. And that's the reason why, as lawyer, as an academician, as a police officer, we can't figure out what's going on in the mind of a child or any human being for that matter. So you seek the support of the appropriate agency who are equipped to do that. Instead of only waiting for the judge to interpret. Even in the Law Commission's recommendation, that the judicial, department, that they seek the help of experts. None of us are experts in human psychology. So you get that thing to know whether it is consensual or it has been coerced or in any other form, that it is not actually free consent. And based on this. And then just because somebody has sex, how does it disrupt your education? There are lots of children having sex. Let's not pretend we all live in some fool's world. If we imagine children are not right now having sex, they are going through school, they are going through college. If you give them, that autonomy and provide them the information and services, they will not get pregnant and therefore have their studies disrupted. If you do not get it mandatory reporting resulting in the young man, being incarcerated, his studies will not get disrupted. So, just because somebody is having sex doesn't mean your whole future is ruined.
That relationship charisma, it remains forever and
No,
it
it
remains
doesn't.
alive, madam.
Absolutely
And second,
not, madam.
if there is a sanction,
Because you have sex with someone doesn't mean that you think of him the rest of your life.
for the welfare
No, it
of the
doesn't.
child.
It doesn't. It's only broken relationships which may impact you. But just because you have sex with someone at 16 years, it doesn't mean, for the rest of your life you're only dependent on him. Doesn't happen like that.
Examples,
This is all romantic thing from movies and the books we read. That is not how it. Today's culture, let me tell you, madam, as someone who's teaching, as someone who's been teaching only young people for the last 39 years, let me tell you today, the current trend amongst young people is a hookup culture, where they hook up only to have sex. You have sex tonight, tomorrow you may see each other, will not acknowledge that you even were in the same bed. That is the culture today. So don't imagine this traumatizes them for the rest of your
No, I'm
life.
not
You're romantically involved, it might, but then if you provide the right kind of education and the right kind of counseling, you can overcome all these things. It doesn't, last you their entire lifetime.
Romantic involvement is resulting into the sex, my lord.
Not necessarily.
I have a different answer for that. Ma'am, you were talking about romantic relationship affecting them. I agree to little extent, not that too much, basically because a romantic relationship is like attaching your mental mindset also to with that person. So if a person is not carrying forward, he's not extending the relationship, a long-term relationship, then you feel cheated. So that is what it affects the child. That I have been humiliated, I have been seen as a dust. I have been used and thrown. So that is what affects the child. It's not that romantic relationship as such. It is not the chastity that affects the child. It is that mental health, that the child believes that I have been, seen as a, use and throw product. where I've been cheated. I love that person, but he used me and threw. Yeah, psychological impact is what the child we have to look at it. It's not the physical impact that makes it. And ma'am was talking about the section 3 of this thing. It says a person. It's not a man or a woman. It says a person. Person includes man and women. So we invoke that. Now 354 also we invoked. Recently there's a case where we invoked 354 against women, and there I discussed with law of fraternity, and then we say that a person who insult the women, modesty, the modesty of women is compromised. A person. So even against women we take this case.
It says women.
No, it says a person. Person,
But exploiting women.
no, exploiting a child. In POCSO, it's 3. A child. A child includes, when you go to definition, it includes boy and girl. Yeah. A child is only 18 years of age. There is no gender neutral law, it says. Yeah.
I have cast a judgment giving legality to the unwed mothers under Medical Termination of Pregnancy Act. Why would not change the age of consent like 16 and 18? He says that unwed mothers can be permitted to have medical termination of pregnancy. That means you say that it is an accepted fact that people have sex between the age of 16, 18, even...
You're saying
No.
unwed mothers outside marriage, women are getting pregnant is all it means.
Yes, all that means, but unwed, not the mothers, youngsters, what do you call it? Teenagers, adolescents. That was the judgment given by Justice Chandrachud. If that is so, when you accept that, why can't you say that the age of consent can be reduced from 18 to 16? See, one side you approve and the other side you negative the thing.
Madam, one can get pregnant because of... So when you become pregnant, somebody is forced himself on you.
There I agree with
Huh.
you. If it is consensual.
Yeah, exactly.
The
So,
boy is also my child. The girl is also my child. Why penalize the boy?
Madam, why are you raising that question against us? Neither of us are saying we should not do it. We're just saying you can't so easily make a law because not every male child and every female child who are in sexual relations, it is consensual. There can be various kinds of coercion. So you can't uniformly just enact a law saying that 16 to 8, bring it down from 18 to 16.
Ma'am, but penalizing the boy, not the girl. That is the problem which
Both of them is consensual. Obviously, whoever is seen as having older or other things will always be treated differently. The law doesn't say.
There you stand. You say that the person is older. I say a girl and a boy love each other. They have consensual sex. And why do you want to penalize the boy? That is why we have been.
Ma'am, that's what the first question, I think the same answer applies to this question also. It is a social norm. The law is gender neutral, and we need to apply. We as a practitioner or enforcer, we need to apply that case to case basis. Where if a child is you take this, if a girl child is 16 years who is mentally retarded, who has a mental maturity of 13 years,
There I agree with you.
Yeah,
That is
let
all
me.
we are saying.
Let me complete. And the boy is 15 years. So just because the girl is older than the boy, you can't register case against the girl because he has a mentally retarded child.
These are special cases or peculiar cases.
No, we need to apply this
Boy
case.
and girl fell in love with each other.
Yeah.
Then they have sex.
Yeah.
But only the boy is being penalized. That is my question.
parents go and
That is
find
why
out.
I'm saying
Yeah.
age of consent has to be. See, as you rightly pointed out at the initial stage of your
Case
speech,
study, yeah.
that it is a hormonal disturbance.
Yeah.
I want to have sex with my boyfriend.
Yeah.
That is my right.
Yeah.
When you call it a right,
Yeah.
and many countries have accepted that,
Yeah.
why do you want to penalize only the boy? That is the question.
That's a practitioner's problem, not a legal problem. This is not a problem with the legislation.
My objection is it is not hormonal disturbance.
Pardon, madam?
It's not hormonal disturbance. It's all
Madam, it is hormonal disturbance. Side of Nishantini. Nishantini, I was with you. All Elizabeth said was somewhat right. Somewhat right. But the solution solution relies in between both the terms. Exactly. We need to find a solution. There may be, if I am a defense lawyer, I will talk something different. That is how we lawyers go. But there is a case wherein two sides. We need to find a solution to that. That's what I feel. Because when the Supreme Court recently said that, no change in the age of consent, I was really depressed, madam. I have seen so many men. You said that is right. Many men become drug addicts. There will be antisocial elements. Everything happens. Likewise, the women also. In many women, I'm a feminist and I have been an activist all through my life after marriage. Not before that, because I do not know what is sex, as you rightly said. But I fell in love with a man. But I married him only after 18 years. I saved my man. But it is not the case here. So what happens is, I was telling something now, Sheila. Time. Anyway, that is true. Women also feel that when they enter into marriage, I am not pure. Somebody has used and thrown me, and wantonly I have also spent my happy time with him. I can't marry. If the parents force us to get married to some other person, their sexual life becomes rotten and they come to the court. This also happens. Both men and women are affected. In that case, in order to provide something like that, we need to find a solution to have age of consent, madam, between 16 and 18. That is what I feel. Thank you very much for giving me the time.
Had a sex with his girlfriend, and there were his friends who also came in and they also had a sex with her. She couldn't oppose at that time because she didn't understand what is happening.
I think I explained that similar thing already. Please go ahead.
Yeah, my query, madam, these social services and the counsellors, is there some procedure or norm wherein they report back saying that the affected child has been psychologically healed?
Madam, this has not already happened. This is only a recommendation we are making, saying such cases should be reported not to the police but to social service people and to the counsellor. How they do it, what they should do, what they should not do, these are things that have to be worked out. This is always saying is, let not mandatory reporting be there. Because mandatory reporting is there, even where things might be sorted out, amicably, they are not being sorted out. The boy inevitably ends up, incarcerated. That is all.
Thank you.
Ma'am, one more. I just want to know, is there start consensual sex during the adolescent age? Because we have read so many.
I don't think there's some case of
that is also there.
Yeah.
We need to understand that.
Tread by somebody else. We don't want to take another path for the reason that you will be blamed. You have to be, responsible for that. So we don't generally deviate from the well-read path.
So far, any case is filed on behalf of the boy? So far,
Boy against boy is done, ma'am. In my boy against boy is done.
Boy against boy.
not boy against girl.
In my knowledge,
Same sex.
I was insisting, that one of my police officer that you should go ahead and register. So they say, ma'am, what court will say? We are all scared of court, as whatever this thing, we are all scared. So what court will say? Then court, let court come to say that, okay, yes, mental maturity of this is what this. And all this, because it's a very grey area in this act. It's what I feel.
Also in our society, we do not imagine that a girl will take the initiative. So all these social things have to be broken before we can start looking at, other.
Because regarding the adolescent sexual activity, because of adolescent sexual activity is a reality now, and because of that, lot of cases are coming under the POCSO Act, and that is why maybe an act recommendation has come from certain quarters to lower the age of consent. So I think instead of abruptly, as both of you are saying, saying that we need to reduce the age of consent to address the issue of adolescent social behavior, which is mostly maybe consensual between young adolescent adults. I think the focus should be to see that there should be a non-punitive approach to such behavior rather than a punitive approach, which is actually what the Committee of Rights of Children, which is the implementation agency for the Convention of Child's Rights. Even that committee has also stressed, the expert committee has stressed that all over the world it is a reality that there is adolescent sexual behavior. So there should be a non-punitive approach. It's not that it should be given the go-ahead, saying that age of consent is reduced, so you go ahead and have sex all over the place. It's not like that. Because having sex below the age of 18, especially in our social context, it leads to a lot of problems. It's not a very easy thing to say, it is a right of the child to have sexual behavior. But it has to be that reality has to be understood by us, and only a I think that was the focus of the conversation made by both of you. A non-punitive approach and some other stakeholders like psychologists, other persons, rather than putting it into a criminal justice system abruptly, getting them punished, putting them behind the bars, especially the men-focused approach. Instead of that, a non-punitive approach where all the other stakeholders are involved and the children are counseled, the problems are solved, their privacy is also protected. In that way, maybe this problem can be solved instead of abruptly decreasing the age of consent and creating other problems. Maybe that was it.
Dignitaries on the stage, off the stage, friends from across the country. It's been a wonderful and vibrant morning. We had an excellent seminar session, and my duty is to thank each person who has come and made this a wonderful occasion. Well, 60 years ago, 13 women lawyers in the Kerala High Court got together to form the Kerala Federation of Women Lawyers. I'm sure each one of them would be extremely happy and jubilant to see this room full of women lawyers actively discussing a topic of such grave importance to today's society and today's India. Kerala Federation of Women Lawyers has immense pleasure in hosting this seminar and the National Executive Council in Ernakulam, and we are indeed proud for this privilege. Justice Anu Shivaraman, it's my duty to thank one and all. Justice Anu Shivaraman, she has been a great supporter of the Kerala Federation of Women Lawyers throughout her career as a lawyer and thereafter as a judge. I thank her on behalf of the Federation for her constant support. Senior Advocate K. Gopalakrishna Kurup, the Advocate General of the State of Kerala, has introduced the topic with a touch on the history of the concept of the age and the consent of age for sexual relationships. That was a wonderful touch. In his absence, I thank him. He has not only been very supportive of our activities, but also contributed very considerably for the hosting of this occasion. Thank you, sir, in your absence. Now, Hemalata Maheshi, Advocate Hemalata Maheshi, the President, All India Federation of Women Lawyers. In her dignified, gentle, but very strong way, she leads us from the front, and we are indeed very happy that she was able to attend this function and felicitate us on this occasion. Thank you, ma'am, for coming. Advocate Biju, the President in charge of the Kerala High Court. Actually, in Kerala, the Federation of Women Lawyers and the High Court Association, we are two sides of the same coin. We stand by each other in every function or program or project, and I thank him in his absence. Professor V.S. Elizabeth, National Law School of India University. Ma'am, I can't say how grateful we are for your presence and the studied presentation. This is a subject not quite coming within your regular area, as I was told by Advocate Parvati. Thank you, ma'am. See, it really opened up our minds on certain grey areas which we were not sure, we were not even thinking in those areas. As you rightly said, we just can't suddenly jump. There is no overnight solution for this issue, and there is no one fix for all these problems that come under the POCSO and the subject that we are debating. Thank you, ma'am, very much. Thank you very much indeed. Mrs. Nishantini, IPS DIG Police, Trivandrum Range. Ma'am, as we rightly expected from you, in your friendly, informal way that we have seen you, you have brought the practical aspect of it, and the fact that there is no how much we have to work on the ground before we enact something which will change the entire system that we have been following since 2012. How we have to equip ourselves, stakeholders of the criminal judicial system, how we have to equip a lot of departments before even before we attempt a legislation on this behalf. And definitely, I think we should have more of these interactive sessions between different stakeholders. We should next time have the psychologists and the psychiatrists among who work among children who are already abused or have gone through this, and we should see that part of the story as well before we decide what is good for them during a trial, post-trial, getting back into the mainstream of the society. We are not experts. As ma'am said, we are not experts. We must realize that, and we must get into more interactive sessions. And thank you, ma'am, for coming all the way from Trivandrum and presenting this. And we look forward to have more interactive sessions with you and your department. 18 members of the National Executive Committee of the All India Federation of Women Lawyers have come from all over India, from Punjab, Karnataka, Tamil Nadu and Maharashtra, as well as Andhra Pradesh and Telangana, Karnataka, Orissa as well, yes, of course. The founding president, Sheila Anish, the past presidents, we thank you all for coming and gracing this occasion. Teamwork is the backbone of every organization. And Kerala Federation of Women Lawyers have proved that for the last 60 years. Our vibrant president, P.K. Shantamma, who has been leading us in the second term of her presidency, she has led a very wonderful team of executive committee members who have arranged this function without a flaw. And we were very insistent that it should go on the time framework that we had designed. And the senior members of the Kerala Federation, including Advocate Prabha Menon and her team, who had led KFWL very well in the early years, all the young members, staff, I thank you on behalf of the Kerala Federation and All India Federation of Women Lawyers. Thank you very much.
May I call upon Advocate P.K. Shantamma to give away a token of a memento to Professor Elizabeth as a token of love and gratitude. And may I call upon Advocate Karthika Sukumaran, representing the AIFWA, to give away the memento to Srimati Nishandini IPS as a token of our love and gratitude. On behalf of the Kerala Federation of Women Lawyers, I take this opportunity to thank the speakers for giving us this brainstorming session. Thank you, ma'am.
पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड उत्कल बंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्चल जलधि तरंगा तव शुभ नामे जागे तव शुभ आशीष मागे गाहे तव जय गाथा जन गण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे.
Dance program to entertain you with the dance program, The Rhythm of Diversity.
रास रचिलो साज सजिलो शुभ घडीचे आवी
दिखाने जाएगी होश उड़ाने वाली शौक नजर के जो पेच लड़ाने जाएगी राय बरेली में तू बीच बाजारी जब हुस्न दिखाने जाएगी होश उड़ाने वाली शौक नजर के जो पेच लड़ाने जाएगी अरे बहन के इतना से बढ़ कहना तेज हवा से बच के रहना गिर जाए तो फिजता कहना झुमका गिराई
झुमका झुमका झुमका
What झुमका?